It was fluff and peanut butter.
That was so
PB and
good.
fluff, same thing. And then we had these like, I don't even know.
Do you have a child? Does your child attend school?
Whatever.
Does their school have an automated external defibrillator, an AED?
We were at the game, and as we was approaching halftime, was the first time that Greg Moyer did enter the game. As a sophomore, he was a substitute, big, strong, and I'm sure the coach put him in for both of those reasons. The team left the court at halftime, normally went past us, and maybe 2 minutes into the halftime, somebody came out looking for Greg's parents.
A young athletic teen whose life was cut short rests in a grave with nothing more than a wooden cross. That's because Rachel and John Moyer vowed there'd be no tombstone on their son's grave until schools are required to have automatic external defibrillators on site. Automatic external defibrillators, or AEDs, are the one device that might have saved his life.
They had called the ambulance. There wasn't panic, there was extreme emotion. I remember Katie Moyer, Greg's sister, "Breathe, Gregory, breathe." And it was almost a plea, it was a plea. And Mom, hovering over Greg, just, "Come on, Gregory, you've got to do this." You always know in a family they call you by your full name, it's something important, it's something special.
Children are not immune from sudden cardiac arrest. Sudden cardiac arrest can happen anytime, anywhere, to anyone. Our 15-year-old son was coming off the court at a basketball game when he collapsed into cardiac arrest. There was no automated external defibrillator there. And we believe that he could have been saved.
Despite the increased number of AEDs in public buildings, it's not required. It's not even common. Despite the fact that sudden cardiac arrest is the #1 natural cause of death in America, or that AEDs are the only tool to offer a chance at surviving sudden cardiac arrest, it's still seen by far too many as just an added cost to the budget.
Everyone standing in awe, wondering, why are we here? What's happening? This young, strong boy.
I'm Eleanor Willis, producer and writer for 23 The Story, a documentary meant to share the Moyers family story and heighten the awareness for the need for AEDs. Meeting Rachel had a major impact on me. This family had endured the tragic loss of a child, and where statistics show most families fall apart, they strengthened theirs and turned a negative into a positive. But for Rachel and John Moyer, whose son still lies in an unmarked grave, all they see are the unnecessary deaths where AEDs were not available.
Everybody was helpless, waiting for the ambulance. And subsequently, of course, we realized that had there been an AED present, the ambulance wouldn't have been as critical.
Aware Media's documentary will tell you the story of Gregory and his family's efforts to put AEDs in schools. It's funny, so many people we've spoken to, parents, executives, even lawyers, all assume that this is already a law, and yet here we are with our children at risk. We're hoping to bring awareness to this problem and influence, if not the schools and the politicians, then the parents, convincing them that we as individuals need to insist that public buildings, especially those that house our children like schools, be equipped with AEDs. Building codes mandate the placement of fire extinguishers and water fountains. Codes also mandate that schools have first aid kits and school nurses for our children's safety. Your voice is needed until the placement of AEDs are as important as the fire extinguishers, because both tools save lives. And then there's the water fountain to provide drinking water. In fact, most schools are required to have 1 per 100 students. Really, I've asked around, who still drinks from those fountains? I've heard schools that actually tell parents to send water bottles to school with their children, and parents that tell their children not to drink from the fountains. Yet every school has to have moldable fountains. Researching the costs, we've been given multiple estimates for the installation and maintenance of just one water fountain for 1 year. If we can't change the laws, maybe it's the building codes that needs to change. Just one less fountain could provide and maintain 2 AEDs for years.
11 years later, I'm still visiting grief-stricken families that have lost their child because of sudden cardiac arrest in schools. This has got to change. It's been too long. We now know what can save these kids. And I think if we speak loud enough, that finally every school in this country will have an AED.
Finally, the ambulance came. They took over the CPR and took him out. We followed down to the hospital to find out all too quickly that he died in the ambulance. We're not sure that he was alive going into the ambulance, but he died in the ambulance on the way.
When Greg died, I thought when people found out that an automated external defibrillator would have probably made the difference between life and death for him, that the school districts would just go out, they would get them to protect their kids. And then, you know, as time went by, it wasn't fast enough. And one of the commitments we made was that we would not put a headstone on our son's grave until there was an AED in every school in this country. And I thought at the most it might take 2 years. And now, 11 years later, I'm baffled. I am overwhelmed. I'm heartbroken. But I feel as though I made a commitment to our son that in his memory, this is the least that we could do for the 15 years of joy and happiness he not only gave us, but a lot of other people. And there's some kid out there that we're going to save because we continued his legacy. But there's no excuse. We don't want another kid to die to prove, yes, there should have been an AED in that school.
$1,000, whatever they exactly cost these days, can save a life. And you said that's not a good $1,000 we spent because we may never need it. It's like not having insurance.